She's just amazing.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Great Reboot. This is a show about you and for you, specifically during this COVID-19 pandemic, finding new ways to rebuild, to reboot, to reorganize, kind of find yourself. And there is a woman who has just, her timing couldn't be any better for this pandemic because she has just launched a brand new business. She never could have seen this coming. Katherine Vilnrotter is joining us right now. Her company is called Love the Cure, and I just want to welcome you to the Great Reboot, Katherine.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you, Tori.
Good to have you here. I love what you're doing. I know it's been kind of a crazy time right now. You had already started a shift of your own in starting this company as an entrepreneur. It's a mental and energy practice that you have. I want to hear a little bit more about that, and then we'll get into kind of a little bit of the backstory. What is it that you do?
Well, thank you. So I have two parallel practices. One is I'm a human givens practitioner, which is it's an approach to a talk therapy that comes out of the UK and Ireland. It's very effective and efficient, and I focus on trauma treatment.
Wow.
An extremely efficient and effective and safe way to treat trauma. So that's really a huge passion of mine. And so I do that. It's one side of my practice. And then there's energy work where I help people harmonize their energy systems. And I find that they work very well together because you can change your thinking and your energy system is still out of balance. And so sometimes you have to do them both together, and sometimes you don't, but they're very, they help each other.
And when you talk about trauma, does it kind of cover the spectrum of different kinds of trauma?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really don't like the word trauma because it has so much stigma.
Yeah.
And people feel broken, and people don't like using that word. So it makes people understand what that is, so I use it, but I don't like it. Really, what trauma is unprocessed information that's stuck in your limbic system. And so there's a really beautiful technique that Human Givens perfected called the rewind technique. And that just allows the brain to work with its natural mechanisms to process that information in a state of low emotional arousal. So
wow. So because I guess when you're going through trauma, everything is from that moment and on, and so you're probably not dealing with it as you may have in the past. Is that what that is?
Right. Well, if you have information that's very high stress, it's very potent. It cuts off with the cocktail of stress hormones, that are flowing through your brain and your body. It disconnects the two parts of your brain. So, want to see my favorite brain diagram?
Yes.
That's this. So this is three parts of your brain: the brain stem, where the information comes in, so our bodies, right, with all of our sensory organs. And then there's your limbic system, or your emotional brain. And then around it, that walnut-shaped kind of looking part of your brain is the neocortex. And that's where all the slow, rational thinking happens. So that's where, our personalities, our intelligence, all of that is. And the limbic system, the emotional brain, is just reacting. It's survival.
Wow.
And so when you're stressed, you flip your lid and you don't have access to that intelligent part of your brain. And so what this technique does is it just allows to lower your emotional arousal and connect those two parts of your brain so that the information can be processed and you're not triggering to it.
And then you said that it's a really great combination with the energy work that you're doing as well. Tell me a little bit about that. And is that important to have somebody right there in an office to do?
Well, actually, I'm doing all of my work remotely right now. So energy work can be done at a distance, and so can the Human Givens work. I've been doing everything through Zoom, and it's just as effective.
So you were building up this practice for the past year and a half, and you had it, I imagine you had it clearly on your calendar, launch. What was the launch date? March?
It was actually going to be April 1st, but I just decided that in February. So
Wow.
it was a very, I'm the type of person that when I feel something and I know that it's right, I just go for it. And so I had a moment like that in February, and I just felt like I needed to do it on my own, because it wasn't, the way I was doing it before wasn't allowing me to be true to what I felt my practice needed to be.
Wow. Great timing then, huh?
Yeah, I couldn't have planned it better.
So you kind of did your own great reboot prior to all of this, and now you're shifting a little bit, but it sounds like you've already found a formula that's working for you. Take us through, if you would, what's it been like for you, and has it been a difficult ask of your clients to kind of practice in a different way?
Well, I find that my clients are all, because I deal with trauma so much, they're all going through a lot anyways. And what I've actually found is this time, as it's been a reboot for me, is also a reboot for them. And it's giving all of us this space. And so if I do some really intense trauma work with someone, this actually has been very beneficial, because it gives them the space to focus on, like, almost the detoxing and the healing that has to happen after that, and that there's an opportunity to have happen. And what I've seen over the last year and a half is, if people just zoom right back into their normal life, which is very fast paced potentially, they might not have the space and the time to actually process what their brain is trying to process. And so this almost has been an amazing healing time for the people that I'm working with, and for myself. So it's that space that really lets us process and see who we are.
It must have been concerning, though, for you. I think there is that great unknown that a lot of people are faced with right now. And I think that while some people are looking at this time as, okay, it's kind of a time that we can hit the restart button a little bit, and take a deep breath. There are a lot of people who are very worried. And are you fielding those calls as well from people who just don't know what they're going to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much uncertainty, and, everything's up in the air. And there's a lot of anxiety around. And I feel that my job is to help ground people in, okay, what do you know? What can you create that's stable? Since what we're getting from the outside, and the virus and the government and whatever the context is that you're dealing with, your situation, if that's swirling around you in chaos, how can you find within yourself a space that can ground you? Because it is so disharmonizing, and there's almost no foundation. It's like we're all on quicksand all of a sudden. So
can you give us, I think it would be good to share your web information that you have, or any information that you might have that you'd like to pass along to folks, just so we don't forget. Because a lot of people would probably like to give you a call or line up an appointment with you.
No, yes, absolutely. My website is www.love-cure.com. So it's the Love Cure. And you can email me, katherinelovecure@gmail.com. And you can email me or call me. All my contact information is on the website, and I'd be happy for a free 15-minute consultation to see if we're a good fit and see if I can help.
I love the name of your company. So tell us kind of the roots behind that.
The root of that is that through the last year and a half, and now that I look back, my whole life probably, is any situation, any problem, anything that needed to be healed, when you look at it through a lens of love, or if you add love to that situation, it can heal. Love will help any situation. And I've seen that in my Human Givens clients. And one of the most potent, and it was an example that like slapped me in the face, I couldn't ignore it anymore, was an energy client that I had. And there was a growth something that we were looking at in terms of something in her physical body, and we wanted to see the root of it. So I was looking at the energy system and how that was interacting with her system. And it turns out it was a separate thing. She was holding on to someone else's energy. And so we did some experiments because that was the first time I had seen that.
Wow.
It wasn't part of her energy. It had a completely different energy signature. So we took that as the sample and we just did some experiments. And I just thought on a whim, well, why don't you just love that energy? Just love it. And so she took a few minutes, pumped some love into that vibration of the thing that was hurting her. And then I took my measurements again, completely neutralized. Completely neutralized.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And I could measure it. And so it was the first time and we know love heals everything. We know that intuitively, but I could measure it and I could see it and it's repeatable. So
what do you use to measure? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I love talking about this. I actually use biogeometry tools. So many people probably have not heard of biogeometry.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, this is something I'm wearing, which you probably can't see.
I can see it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, all of those little squiggles are biogeometry, biosignatures. And so those are energy patterns that connect with different parts of the body. So that's how biogeometry works, through resonance. And so basically I'm using different pendulums to find the wavelength, because everything is a vibration. So I'm finding you as a person, as an energy system, you have a specific energy vibration. And I can tune into that with these different tools and say how strong or how weak it is on the different planes.
And so you can do that on the phone then, or would you do it in like through a Skype or Zoom? How do you do that?
Well, so all I need is, so I have my energy clients send me a piece of paper that they've rubbed on their skin with no product. So I'm getting a physical sample of their vibration, and then I put that on the tools. And especially now with the post delay, you can also do it with a photograph and use shape resonance. So in a pinch, I'll use that, but I always like to have the actual sample if I can.
Wow. So when you were talking about her holding on to somebody else's energy, if you're working with all these people who have trauma and all of these other possibly negative entanglements, how do you protect yourself from that happening to you?
Yeah, well, this is one of the ways. I have this. I have a very regimented clearing practice. I make sure that I have a clear space in my home, and it would be in my office, but now my home is my office.
Like all of us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I make sure to ground as much as I can. I go outside, touch rocks, touch trees. The exchange of negative ions is hugely beneficial to our physical bodies. And science knows this. So, and even just breathing the air and going outside and having a change of environment, especially right now. And I make a conscious effort to release everything that's not mine. And as an empath, that's one of the things that I've been dealing with my whole life is what I'm feeling mine or someone else's. And so having that discernment is also something that I still struggle with, or not struggle. I'm still learning how to do better. Is this my clients or is this mine?
That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to the next natural question. I was going to ask you about what are some simple tools you can pass along to help people right now through this. And it sounds like going outside and maybe touching a tree or just breathing deeply is part of it. What else might you suggest to people? What are some simple remedies just even around the house that might help?
Yeah, well, one very simple breathing technique it's the name 7-Eleven breathing was coined by the Human Givens approach, but that's just elongating the exhale. So 7 is the count of the inhale and elongating the exhale. Any breath that you do where your exhale is longer than your inhale will start to change from, especially if you're stressed, from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's that's something that's really simple. You can go from a full-blown panic attack, and if you have with each breath, you're doing this for 14 minutes, you can cancel it out. So if you can go from a panic attack to being normal in 14 minutes with this breathing technique, it's very effective. And the issue is when you're in a stressful situation, remembering to do it. So that's
Breathe.
just
Breathe.
breathing out more is always very, very helpful.
Which is so important right now, because I think a lot of people, I mean, you're bombarded by the news and you're seeing everything going on. And I think people are getting caught up in that anxiety piece. So that's a really useful tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing,
yes, go ahead.
Another thing that I would say is, just with all of this negative, high stress and uncertainty that we're dealing with, finding joy and finding laughter. Laughter is like love. It'll heal everything. If you can laugh with somebody, you can't really be in fear at the same time. So finding the nuggets and the things that you can be joyful about and can enjoy in this chaos is also extremely healing.
It seems like we're entering kind of a time of, people have been talking about the new normal, and I'm not really sure. I think because a lot of people don't know what that's going to be, it's kind of a safe term, I guess. What are you preparing for? Is this going to be a whole new way that you do business, or, what is this setting the stage, or how is this setting the stage for you?
Well, for me, one of the things that I noticed most potently in my experience is how much more I'm appreciating other people, and because I don't have access to them, and human contact. And one of the things that, so the human given structure is very, very simple. I teach it to 6-year-olds. It's very simple, but we have these 9 needs, and everyone has these same needs. And some of these needs are community, intimacy, and feeling accepted and acknowledged. And when we're completely disconnected from everybody, I've been noticing, oh my gosh, how do I get those needs met? And I think that it's a reflection of potentially the younger generation who was brought up with technology and maybe didn't appreciate as much human-to-human contact and actual face-to-face relationships. So what I'm hoping is that it might have the effect of saying, well, we really, this is really healing to actually be face-to-face with somebody and give them an actual hug, as long as it's safe and there's no coronavirus. But in the future, this too shall pass, and we will be able to hug each other again. And this connecting with nature and connecting with each other in really meaningful ways really is so healing. And I'm hoping that will be integrated into whatever the new normal is.
Right now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what is do you have a wait time, or are you taking new customers, new clients?
I'm absolutely taking new clients. And you could just go on my website. There's, I believe, a 48-hour wait, but there's plenty of space for anyone, for sure.
I just wanted to read something because I found it very interesting. It's part of I think it's part of your pledge. And it's a quote from Sergeant Shriver. And I love this. Peace requires the simple but powerful recognition that what we have in common as human beings is more important and crucial than what divides us. If people don't know, Sergeant Shriver was the creator of the Peace Corps, and he also was married to, or he passed away married to one of the sisters of John F. Kennedy. That's a beautiful, I should say, Eunice Kennedy Shriver. It's a beautiful statement. Is that how you like to live?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was a Peace Corps volunteer. So Sergeant Shriver was a big part of my finding who I was, and I'm eternally grateful. And that's why it's part of my email. And I even just having that there is a reminder to me every time I write an email. And that is definitely how I always strive to live my life. don't always succeed, but I always try.
So let me ask you, where were you in the Peace Corps, and what did you take from that experience to where you are now? And did you culturally learn something that's helped to inform this new venture of yours?
Absolutely. I was in Honduras, so Central America,
Yeah.
and there are I don't even know where to start. There's so many things from my Peace Corps experience. And my host family, I'm still in contact with them, and they were just the most beautiful humans. And I was in a tiny, tiny town in the south of Honduras called Duyure, and just this tiny little community, and how I saw people come together for a common goal. No matter what it was, they were always there for each other. And they had TV, they had radio, but how they came together and how they created joy through direct contact and knowing each other and looking at each other in the eyes every day. I learned so much from them. Coming from, I was in New York right before I left. So going
There's a
from New
contrast.
York to this tiny, beautiful community.
Don't make eye contact. Don't look at anybody.
Exactly. So you've been there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow, it sounds like you did. You took all of that and now you're totally integrating it into your new venture, which is just a beautiful, I love what you're doing. The Love Cure is just it's a wonderful idea, and not just an idea, it's a wonderful practice. So Katherine, why don't you give us your phone number if people want to reach you and line up a session with you?
Absolutely. It's 818-641-4633. And please leave a voicemail if you call.
Katherine, I'm intrigued to find out how you got involved in that practice. You said that it's really popular or well known in England and Ireland. Can you share a little bit with us and kind of how you got to do this?
Yes, actually, I can. I actually experienced a really intense life-altering trauma, and I had PTSD for 5.5 years-ish.
Would you mind sharing what it was?
Yeah, I was gang raped at Machete Point. Yeah, and so completely changed my understanding of who I was and what life was and what the world was, everything. And that life-shattering event, obviously, full-blown PTSD, and I was trying to function in the world, and but I wasn't living for much of that time. And so I was actually volunteering at a domestic violence counseling center in New York City when I was living there. And I was just doing admin work and just logging people in as they came in. And one day I was looking and I was like, these people have been coming here for 20 years. Some of them, 15, 20 years.
Wow.
Is it working? What are they doing?
Right.
And so I started asking the therapist, I started asking questions like, what are you doing? Do you find that people get better? And they're like, not really.
Wow.
Which was unacceptable to me. And so
Alarming.
Oh, yes, very alarming. So I decided I was going to go home and Google and find a better solution. And so I did. So I hadn't found, I had been looking for myself and doing research and going to conferences, trying to understand what I was experiencing, for a lot of that time. And so I knew that, CBT, EFT, all the letters, I knew all of those, but human givens popped up and I hadn't heard of that. So I clicked on it and I started reading it, and it was completely parallel to everything I was experiencing. So I was like, they get it.
Wow. Can you spell it so that if people do want to Google as well? Is it, yeah.
Yeah, human, HUMAN, givens, GIVENS. Like what are the givens of being human?
Oh, okay. So that's the root of that. Okay, gotcha. Wow. So I guess what is different about that, and are they able to help people more quickly than 20 years? I mean, does it take a lot less time?
Yes, it does. And I know from experience because I contacted them after I started, reading about them and seeing that they got it. I contacted them and asked if there was someone I could talk to about PTSD. And they said, yes, of course. And so Sue Saunders, an amazing woman, who's one of the head tutors there in the college, in the Human Gibbons College. And so she got on Skype and talked to me for an hour, gave me an hour of her time. Who am I? Just out of nowhere contacting her. And that's when I knew they were good people. But she told me in our conversation that she would be doing a workshop in the US for the first time ever a couple months later. And so I went, and they needed,
that's timing.
it was perfect timing, but they needed a trauma demo. And so I raised my hand and I got it. And one session, it was gone.
I just got the chills. Wow.
And so at that moment, I knew I had to start studying it. And I was in construction. I was doing construction project management before this. And with that experience, I knew that construction wasn't my soul's calling. This was. And so it was just, I knew. And then I 2018, it was October, I got my license and I started practicing. And so it was a big thing for me. And I'm just so happy and honored to be able to pass this thing that gave me my life back to other people. I know it works, because I've experienced it. So I don't have to sell anything that I don't believe. Like it's in my bones.
Yeah.
So
it's not snake oil. I mean, it's the real deal. It sounds. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that very intimate story. And I hope I didn't come on too strong asking, but that was amazing that you're able to share that. That's really beautiful. And for anybody who's watching right now, I'm sure they feel as I do. What a gift you are, and that you're willing to share that horrible ordeal. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Katherine Vilnrotter, I just love what you're doing, love the cure. Is there anything you want to leave, any ideas or thoughts you want to leave with folks who are watching right now and who may have an interest in reaching out to you, or just what they can do?
Absolutely. The nugget I would like to leave on is, if there's anything that you experience, any part of yourself that you can love more, any part of anyone else that's in your immediate environment, or that's not, maybe even political figures, if that's what's causing you stress, anything that you can give more love to, the faster we'll all heal.